I love words. I love words probably more than anybody in my direct circle. But I also understand that words are deceptive. Words can be seductive. Words can be misleading. Nowadays, when you're talking to somebody, you not only have to listen, but you have to double back. I'm not doing any translate, because to translate what you mean from what you said, I gotta assume. And I remember assuming. I remember trying to go into my head and figure out what it was that you was trying to say, even though you didn't say it. And it's been so free. It's been so freeing to live beyond that. Like I said, I'm indirectly illiterate. If you don't speak to me directly about what it is that you're trying to say, I'm not going to take away what you indirectly said from what you said, because I'm not going in editing your script. I'm not trying to write your part. And that's the thing. Like we fall out with people so often, because not only are we constantly going into our inner dialogue, into our thoughts, listening to the legion of the ego, regurgitating non-beneficial statements that we've entertained within ourselves, but we also intake what other people say to us, and then we retreat within the seclusion of ourselves into this lie of ourselves where separation exists, where illusions run rampant. We take what people gave us and we make it out to be what it is that we like it to be. And what's crazy is it's oftentimes exactly what we don't want that we make it out to be. So if you are taking statements, if you are taking every individual statement into the inside of you and determining what it is, why do you so consistently come to the conclusion that what the person meant was hurtful, though what they said was not? It seems like you want to be hurt. It seems like you like to suffer. And I ain't gonna lie, I've noticed it about myself. Like I've noticed that I put myself in certain situations that cause certain strains on myself so that I can apparently be comfortable inside of some low version of myself. I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm not wrestling with the truth. I understand there are some times when my desire for social media shifts from professional to recreational, and I'm not posting content, but I'm scrolling through the content of other people, and I'm doing exactly what other people do on social media that I judge them for. I'm watching little mini soap operas. I love my dear grandmother. She was a great physical experience. She's still an amazing entity that is alive and well on the inside of me and many other people that she raised. But my grandmother transitioned, still living under the illusion of lack. And my grandmother, she wasn't really big on TV like that, but my grandmother kept up with everybody else's life. She kept up with what everybody else had going on. If somebody had a kid, she knew about it, and she knew who that kid was with, and she probably was taking care of the kid. So I've got to firsthand witness the self-sabotage of being wrapped up in other people's experience, under the guise that my love and affection for them has me so fixated on them that I'd rather focus on them than me. Sammy, we have two options. When we treasure the blind spots, we forfeit awareness and being true to self. We forfeit that for self-denial. And that's actually torturous. It's actually a prison. It doesn't feel good to sit and lie to yourself. Actually, the higher self is impossible to confuse or mislead. So the only way to feel like you're successfully doing what you're attempting to do and manipulating yourself is to do it nonstop. Like every moment of every day, everything you do is designed to facilitate the presentation of yourself that you're trying to say. You're not going to work because you enjoy that place and you feel like you're a benefit to the company and the company is a benefit to you. You're in the corner standing and complaining about the administration and front office and how the pay is not adequate, because the only reason you show up to that job is to cater to your illusion of lack and deficiency. I mean, you feel like if you didn't go to somebody's job, somebody would see you as a bum. You feel like if you didn't go to somebody's job, you wouldn't be able to eat food. It was real profound to realize that all of our fears trace back to the ultimate fear of death. If I fear going broke, then my fear of going broke will lead to me not eating and me starving, which is death. If my fear is being rejected, then that rejection would lead to my economical strain, which would lead to me starving and would lead to my death. There's no fear. If you learn how to trace your fears, instead of avoiding your fears, instead of trying to convince other people and convince yourself that you're never afraid, when fear is a natural consequence of the low state of mine that we frequent so often. I'm not wrong when I'm in fear. I'm in the wrong place when fear is accompanying me. When fear has grabbed hold of me, I know immediately that my mind was not set above, that I was not tuned to the truth, that I'm not looking at something correctly, and there is now an illusion that is being presented to me and an illusionary solution that is being presented to me, all by the same entity, all by the same illusionary entity. But this illusionary entity we actually allow to operate as our God, as the head of our life, as the one who directs our path, as the one who chooses which way is the best way for us to go. We actually listen to this legion of voices tell us that these are the problems and these are the solutions. And then when we arrive at the solutions, we find ourselves listening to a new legion of the same voices telling us that now that these things are correct, these things are off, and this is how we fix it. And if you don't wake up, you'll spend your entire life building nothing. Really nothing. Because every time you do construct something, you tear it back down to build the next thing. You'll end up like I did, where 10 years down the line of creating, you look back and say, well, I have nothing to show for all of the work that I've done. There is nothing to show because you went chasing an illusionary dream. You went chasing an imagination. And as soon as you saw some fruit of the chase of that imagination, you realized that imagination was better than the fruit that you had experienced, and you built a new imagination, and you started a new chase, and you went all the way back to the starting block. And that's, there's so many cliches around us, like when people say, how many people have given up not knowing how close they were to finishing? How many people have given up not knowing how close they were to finishing is cool, but how many people have turned around and went back to the starting block as they knew that they were finishing, and they realized that what they thought was going to satisfy them was just another dose of discontentment. You do it with people all the time. Whether it's a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or just someone you're cool with. As long as this person is operating in a way that you see as suitable for you, as you see as beneficial for you, this person has your utmost respect. They have your utmost admiration verbally. But as soon as this person begins to exemplify an idea, a thought that is intrusive to your narrative of who you are, what you are, where you are, and what you have in this person who you've connected to, this person becomes an instant enemy, and you want them gone from your physical experience. And it's really lame to keep wiping people away from your physical display and then regenerating the whole picture all over again with a new person so that you can pretend that there's been a new offense, so that you can facilitate the same hurt upon a new reflection of yourself. Understand that it's not that people keep doing you the same, it's that you keep doing the same thing to people. You leave discontent, you go searching the place of discontentment, you discover what you think is going to save you in the state of discontentment. You find everything you enjoy in the initial phase to work your way out of the state of discontentment into approval. And then from approval, you land right back into a super low level of vibrating, which is judgment and critiquing. Because now that you have given this person your approval, you now have to supervise them and make sure that they still are deserving of your approval. So now every action has to run through your filter of approval. And God forbid they do something that they want to do for themselves, or they do something that they want to do for another individual that's in their life that you disagree with, because now there's a war. And this is what we call love. This is what we call relationships. This is what we watch couples who called every friend they ever had and invited them to a venue that they probably were overcharged for, filled it with decorations, stood at the altar, cried together, said I do, after they exchanged really, really dramatic vows, and then they went right back into control and approval. Understand that you wouldn't even make it to the altar with a female or a male if you hadn't compared them to all the other women and all the other males that you knew. and came to a place of either approval or it could be worse. Stop playing with people. Stop playing with people's life. Stop playing with people's narratives because you have a narrative for yourself that you're trying to protect. I understand that you thought by now you'd be in a certain place. I understand. But don't try to force people to be who you want them to be so that you can pretend that you've arrived at that place, because when the illusion crashes, both of y'all are going to suffer. It's insane how many times we have to listen to people give us their unsolicited opinions out of what they call love and concern. And it's really just worry and fear. I don't need you trying to pass me your fears. Understand, your fears are not better dictators and leaders for my life than my higher self, than my source and my all. I get that you've never been on the inside of me. I get that you've never experienced my level of discipline and my level of relationship and connection with the divine. I understand that. So you feel like I may be operating like you know others to operate, where they're kind of just going through life guessing at the best solution, hoping for the best outcome. But again, like in a very short amount of time, I've lived a really widespread life. The streets taught me a lot of universal truths. Being born into and leaving religion taught me a ton of universal truths. Going in and healing the lies and defeating the ego and crucifying the ego and renewing the mind as a daily process and still going has made me aware of a ton of universal truths. But the fact of the matter is, the best thing that you can do and the best thing that I can do as we pursue the freedom that we were designed for is to break away from wanting and needing people to see us a certain way. Because no matter how good you are, no matter what you do, no matter how consistent you've been, if a person has the desire to see you in a negative light, if a person sees themselves in a negative light, understand that there is nothing that you can do to force that person to see you any other way than the way that they see themselves. It's not physically possible. The only reason I'd be affected by your inability to celebrate for good things in my life is if I was trying to accomplish things to accommodate and appease you. But if I'm really out doing the things that I desire, if I'm really out following the true higher self that's giving me guidance and showing me the way that's directing my path, if I'm really out operating in my purpose and I'm doing things that are bringing happiness to me without you even knowing that I did them, then what is it to me when you don't celebrate when I'm clapping for myself? What does it matter to me when you can't see the good in me when I know the good in me? It's no longer relevant. It's no longer a thing to be heartbroken over or even punish people for, because I don't need you to facilitate that knowledge for me. I no longer need you to be the crutches of my confidence. I'm okay. I'm more than okay. I'm not just a conqueror. I'm more than a conqueror, because every time I've conquered something, I found myself stuck in something else and conquered that too. And the things that I find myself in and having to conquer are my creations, my miscreations. So not only am I given the ability to create and miscreate, I'm given the ability to escape and destroy the things that are attempting to destroy me. Nothing has the ability to destroy me. That is what my picture shows me more than anything. When I turn and look back at my life and I see all the places that I've been in the darkness and the illusions of myself, and all the places that I traveled to try to find that happiness, that peace, and that acceptance that we so crave, that's what I'm most aware of. No matter how hard I worked to destroy myself, here I am. No matter how many times I gave myself over to be destroyed by the illusions of another dreamer, here I am. So many times I've gotten news that I thought was going to break me, shatter me, have me in pieces. I'll never be the same. Days later, I found myself with a new strength, with a new awareness, a new confidence. And what that process of in and out did for me, up and down, I hated the roller coaster ride, but the roller coaster equipped me for the calmness of the river. See, we live really, really unsettled. And while we're unsettled, we say that we want settled environment. But when we find ourselves in settled environments, we're uncomfortable because the things around us, we're not even attracted to anything or any place or anyone that's not a reflection of where we sit internally and in the state that we're in on the inside. So when we find ourselves exposed to other things, we reject them quickly and eject ourselves from those experiences, because we don't want to be aware of a goodness beyond the self-torture that we're doing to ourselves. Understand, I learned in the 3rd grade that I didn't have to apply myself very much to be average. And most children come to that, most kids, they start out straight A students And then somewhere down the line, they realize that they don't have to use the full capacity of their effort and the full capacity of their thinking in order to perform at a level higher than their classmates. And they stop striving for greatness and start competing. But we really don't realize how many of our toys we kept with us. We really don't realize that we have never closed the toy chest in our childhood bedroom. We don't realize how many things that we do in our day-to-day adult life that we do to make us feel like we're still inside of that space that we grew up in. And what's crazy is when we were in that space, we had so many complaints and we wanted nothing more than to be out of that space. So like, that's why I say I don't wrestle with the truth of myself. I look at the way that I've operated so that I can learn the ways of the ego and the consequences of partnering with the ego. And then I begin to apply myself in a way that aligns with universal truth so that I can begin to experience a true life. Are you giving your partner who you paired with should be by choice, by nothing other than I want to be with you. But we know that that's not very common. We know that what's crazy is it's not only that I want you and I'm here because I only want you. It's not very common. It's not crazy that that's not common. What's the crazy part is even when that does exist, because it's so uncommon and so unfamiliar, it's often not found sufficient by the person it's being offered to, even though it far supersedes the norm of I'm here because I need you. And as an intellect, because I could look at the two presentations and analyze the level of love and level of flattery in both presentations and come to the conclusion that there is flattery in I want you, but there is absolutely none in I need you. It took me a long time as an intellect wrestling with that, trying to understand why people would want I need you over I want you. And I never did get it as an intellect. It took me moving beyond the intellect to understand that a person who operates in fear does not want love. They know nothing of love in the place of fear. In the place of fear, I become exposed to something that I accept more than I've accepted others. So now I have the fear of losing what I've accepted and enjoy. So since I have the fear of losing what I've accepted and I found myself to enjoy, and I don't want anybody else to discover what I've found, because they might attach themselves to it and find enjoyment in it too, and it might get in the way of my enjoyment. Now I'd rather have a person say I'm here with you because I need you than I want you. Because if you're here because I want you, that's voluntary. And if you can choose me, you can one day wake up and choose otherwise. But if you need me, as long as I can keep you in the position of needing me, you won't leave. You can't leave. And that's what y'all are holding hands, but want to use a hostage. And this is not everybody, but where it applies, it applies. And I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. For me to see gods who submit to this lowly presentation of relationship and companionship, I've had very little understanding and very little respect for, but I'm able to admit that it's more so jealousy for something that I don't want. And again, I'm grateful for the ability to see the blind spots. I'm grateful for the moments that expose the truth of how I operate, that I withhold from myself because I know I wouldn't approve of it. So I'm grateful for those moments. I don't run from them. I don't retreat from them. And in this moment, I'm able to see and say for the first time with you that it's jealousy for something that I say I don't want. But that's very, very common. If you're driving in your car and you're doing the speed limit and somebody flies past you doing 30, 40 miles plus over the speed limit, what is that feeling that arises in you? Why did you make that statement to your passenger about how silly that driver was? And why are you sitting there hoping that the police pull them over up the hill and when you pass by them, you can look over and shake your head and say you should have been doing right like me? What is that? Because if you're doing the speed limit, why are you doing the speed limit? Are you doing the speed limit because you wanted to? And if you're doing it because you wanted to and they're speeding because they wanted to, then what is the issue? But we commonly construct issues with people for doing things that we say we'd never want to do. But apparently that it's much deeper than that. And I won't even go into it because, like I said, it's going to sound like I'm talking in circles because we often live in a circle. So for me to explain accurately what it is that we do, I have to explain the circle. And 24 minutes in, I know we've been talking long enough that that circle is going to tire us out. So we'll say that one for another time. But lock in. You already know. I'll catch you tomorrow.